My stepson said, "You're just the guy Mom drags to school meetings." So I dragged my name off their financial aid forms. Their mother tried explaining, to the bursar's office. "You're just the guy Mom drags to school meetings." That's what Ryan said. Offhand. Not angry, just bored. His thumbs danced across his phone as the Keurig sputtered behind him. Vanilla pod, same as always. 11 words. He didn't even glance at me. I stood across the kitchen in silence. My kitchen. The one I'd renovated after the tile buckled from water damage. The one with the fridge they slammed and the cabinet door I rehinged 3 times without complaint. I stood there, mug in hand, and watched my stepson say it like I was invisible. Like I was drywall. Like all the years I showed up, filled in the holes their father left, were just background noise. And then he left the room. Didn't wait for a response. Didn't seem to know or care that something inside me shifted with that sentence. He just left the room like nothing had happened. I sat down at the kitchen table. Same table where I once taught Alex how to reduce fractions. Where I stayed up until 2 a.m. helping Ryan edit his history paper, the one he claimed earned him a B+ on his own. The table where I ate most nights in silence. The boys pretending not to hear me when I asked how classes were going. I sat there and I didn't speak. Didn't move. Just stared at the spot where Ryan had stood and let the silence hang around my shoulders like wet wool. An hour later, I opened my laptop. Logged into the FAFSA portal. Withdrew my name from both applications. They didn't need me, remember? I was just the guy who got dragged along. So let their mother drag her name into the next meeting with the bursar's office. Let Brandon, their actual father, Venmo his way through the rest of their lives. When Sarah got home that night, I was already halfway through a bourbon. She kissed my cheek, thanked me for holding down the fort, and started pulling takeout containers from the fridge. She asked how the boys were. I said fine. She asked if I had a good day. I said fine. She didn't notice anything different. She never does when I'm quiet. She mistakes quiet for peace. We've been married 9 years. When we met, she had already folded the word mother around every corner of her life. Her boys were 11, Alex and Ryan. Already wary of men. Already cynical. They didn't need another stranger trying to play dad. I didn't try to. I just showed up. Parent-teacher nights, basketball games, science fair disasters, summer camps with lost backpacks. I showed up. Always in the background. Always paying, always giving, never asked. Brandon lived in Arizona. He sent birthday texts and sometimes $100 through Venmo. Just enough to keep the kids thinking he was more than a ghost. The rest? That was me. Braces. Orthotics. New phones. SAT prep. First car for Alex. Therapy sessions for Ryan after he punched a locker and split his knuckles. "Can you cover this?" Sarah would ask. I always could. But the respect, that never showed up. Alex rolled his eyes every time I opened my mouth. Ryan mimicked my walk once at Thanksgiving. Laughed. Said I looked like a substitute teacher who got lost on the way to class. Sarah told me, "They're just being boys." But boys become men. And when men still treat you like a stranger in your own home, you have to wonder what you built all those years for. The worst part? I kept trying. Even when I knew I was just a placeholder. Even when they called Brandon Dad with a softness I'd never heard directed at me. I remember one night Ryan had strep. Wouldn't stop crying. He was 14. Sarah had a migraine and locked herself in the bedroom. I sat with him on the bathroom floor for 3 hours, reading articles about tonsils, feeding him ice chips. The next day he told his friend's mom took care of him. I remember driving across the city in traffic to bring Alex the basketball jersey he forgot. He texted me thanks without punctuation. I watched him retell the story later, said Sarah brought it. Didn't even mention me. "You're just the guy Mom drags to school meetings." That wasn't a sudden betrayal. That was the conclusion to 1,000 moments. A slow burial. It started years earlier. The day Alex stopped saying goodnight. The week Ryan stopped looking me in the eye. The month Sarah stopped defending me. "Let it go," she'd whisper. "They're just teenagers." She never noticed how cold the house became when she wasn't in the room. She never noticed how the boys waited for her to repeat my instructions before following them. If I asked them to take out the trash, they'd stare through me. If she repeated it, they moved. I became a shadow that paid bills. I held on because I believed in time. That respect would come. That presence would beat absence. I thought if I just kept showing up, they'd see me. But now they were grown. In college. Independent, or so they thought. And the first moment one of them had a chance to define me, "You're just the guy Mom drags to school meetings." They knew what they were saying. They weren't children anymore. That sentence wasn't heat of the moment. It was a verdict. So I handed down mine. That same night, I stopped contributing to their college funds. Canceled auto transfers. Wrote myself out of the narrative. Nobody noticed. Not at first. The next day I made breakfast. Ryan walked in, grabbed a banana, said nothing. Alex came in later, grunted. Neither of them looked at me. Sarah chatted about a school event. Ryan said, "You don't need to come. Mom can handle it." She laughed. I didn't. I started watching the house differently after that. Counting silences. Noting what I paid for and what I got back. The car they drove, mine. The phones in their pockets, mine. The gas, the food, the Wi-Fi they bled dry every night, mine. My name wasn't good enough for respect, but it was good enough for every expense. So I stopped. Stopped paying. Stopped offering. Stopped pretending. I didn't raise my voice. Didn't send an angry text. Just vanished from the ledger. Ryan said I was just the guy who got dragged to school meetings. So now I wouldn't show up at all. Let Brandon handle the next call. Let their real dad answer. I poured myself another bourbon. Sat at the table. Let the fridge hum and the silence settle. Upstairs, they laughed at something on their phones. And I stopped feeling guilty. Because for the first time in years, I was finally telling the truth. Not with words, but with absence. You don't want me? Then you don't get me. Not my name. Not my wallet. Not my sacrifice. Not anymore. The silence stretched for a week. Maybe more. Sarah didn't notice anything was different. She still laid out leftovers like offerings. Still asked me if I could help Alex with his FAFSA login, or remind Ryan to call the insurance office. I nodded. Said I would. Then didn't. Let them figure it out. Then came the spark that finally lit the fuse. Alex wanted to tour an out-of-state school. Somewhere with more opportunity, as he called it. Like the tens of thousands I'd already sunk into their in-state tuition wasn't enough. He brought it up over dinner. Not to me, to Sarah. As if I were just the neighbor who got invited by accident. "I want to visit UC Boulder," he said, scrolling through pictures on his phone. "Their engineering program's better than anything here. I think I could transfer by fall." Sarah looked at me, expectant, like I'd already packed the rental car. I didn't speak. Alex frowned. "We'd need to visit soon if I'm applying this semester. Probably stay a couple nights. Flights are cheapest this week." Still I said nothing. Finally, Ryan looked up. "Dad, is that doable?" He said it without thinking, then flinched. And there it was, the tension, the recoil, the mistake. He called me Dad. The word dropped out like a habit formed long ago and immediately regretted. Alex side-eyed him. Sarah reached for her wine. And me? I didn't smile. Didn't cry. Just met Ryan's gaze across the table and waited. He swallowed. "I mean, you know, Tom." "Right?" I said. "Tom." That night, while they sat watching something upstairs, some show full of perfect, sarcastic teenagers, I opened the account again. Checked the balances, reviewed the recurring payments. I had been paying for more than tuition, textbooks, meal cards, monthly rent for off-campus housing, car insurance, dental premiums. Even Ryan's therapist, who I only heard about secondhand, when Sarah mentioned he might be going through a lot. That therapist bill was $180 a week. I clicked cancel. Then I logged into FAFSA again. This time I withdrew my tax information entirely. Not just from future years. Retroactively. I filed the amendment request, removed my consent, and submitted the official documentation. It was cold, mechanical, like shutting off a valve. Then I opened their savings accounts. The ones I funded birthday by birthday, summer job by summer job. I transferred the remaining balances to a separate account in my name. Not because I needed the money, but because it was mine. Money I'd earned. Money I'd offered out of trust. Trust that had died quietly in my own kitchen. Sarah came to bed late that night. Smelled like wine and lotion. She asked if I was okay. I said I was fine. She kissed my cheek. I turned off the lamp. 2 days later, the fallout began. Ryan came stomping down the stairs holding his laptop like it had betrayed him. "Why did my FAFSA say missing data?" he snapped. "It says the expected family contribution reset." I kept eating my cereal. "Talk to your mom." He blinked. "But you're the one who—" "No," I said. "I'm not." Sarah looked up from her phone. "Tom. He's an adult," I said. "He told me I wasn't part of this." Ryan's eyes narrowed. "That's not what I meant." "No." I set the spoon down. "You said I'm just the guy who gets dragged along. You said I'm not your father. You made it clear this isn't my place." "That's not fair." "No," I said. "It's finally fair." He stormed out. No apology. Just the crash of the front door and the sound of his car peeling down the street. Later that day, Alex texted Sarah. "Why is my rent unpaid?" She forwarded it to me. No words, just the message. I left her on read. The next morning, I got a call from the university's financial aid office. A polite woman asking if I could confirm some income discrepancies. "With all due respect," I told her, "you should speak to their mother, or their biological father. I've been told this isn't my role anymore." She was silent for a second. Then she thanked me and hung up. Sarah confronted me that night, in the kitchen while the boys were out. She held a wine glass like a shield. "What are you doing?" she asked. "I'm listening," I said. "To what?" "To what your sons have said. Over and over." She exhaled. "They're young. You know that. They're not young enough to live on my dime and spit in my face. They know exactly what they're doing. They're confused. They're ungrateful." She stared at the granite countertop, then at me. "You didn't even talk to me," she said. "No," I agreed. "I didn't." "Why?" "Because you never talked to me either. You just expected. You watched them dismiss me, undermine me, erase me, and you called it just being boys." She turned away. I almost stopped then, almost softened, almost said, "I'll pay just this semester, just one more month." But then I remembered Ryan's voice, casual and sharp. "You're just the guy mom drags to school meetings." And I remembered the years of dishes, bills, appointments, drives, emails, and weekends spent picking up pieces someone else should have held. And I said nothing. 3 nights later, Alex came home for the weekend. His energy was off. Too quiet, too polite. He waited until Sarah left the room. "You really cut off the rent?" "Yes." "And tuition?" "Yes." He nodded slowly, like he was processing a death. "I can't pay for this on my own." "I know." He didn't cry, didn't shout, just stood there, hands in his jacket pockets, and let the silence grow. "I didn't mean to hurt you," he said. "That's not the point," I replied. "Then what is?" I leaned back against the counter. "The point is I've been carrying a family that doesn't acknowledge me, and now I'm putting it down." He didn't argue, didn't plead. That was the worst part. He just walked upstairs like a man who knew the truth had already arrived. The bill always comes due, sooner or later. For a while they tried to ignore it, pretend it was a misunderstanding, a glitch. They thought I'd come around like I always did, that I'd quietly pay what was due, smooth the edges, rescue the future they thought they were entitled to. But I didn't. I made no speeches. I offered no explanations. I just stopped holding them up. One by one, the consequences arrived. Alex's rent was the first to hit. The landlord emailed him a 5-day notice. He texted Sarah, "What's happening? Can you talk to Tom?" She didn't answer, so he called me. I let it ring. I didn't decline it. Just watched the name flash on the screen until it stopped. No voicemail. Just silence. Then came Ryan's tuition. He'd already registered for classes, already bought the textbooks. He thought he was safe. Then the hold went active on his student account. No financial aid. No class access. He texted me too. No words. Just a screenshot of the billing portal. Balance due. $7,842.00. I didn't reply. Sarah asked me that night if I'd seen the message. I said, yes. Are you going to respond? No. She didn't press. Because she knew. She'd seen it all pile up. The years, the cuts, the insults tucked between normal days. She just never thought the ground would shift. She thought I'd keep paying even if it meant bleeding. I taught her that I'd carry the cost no matter how invisible I became. That was my mistake. Now she was learning something new. That silence has a price too. Ryan slammed a cabinet the next morning. Claimed there was no food he liked. Said he shouldn't have to deal with this. This, I assumed, was the absence of my wallet. Sarah didn't defend him. She just watched me over her coffee cup. Then Alex came home again. Bags under his eyes. Voice tight. I'm going to have to drop a class, he said. Maybe two. I nodded. I don't think I can keep up with the payments. Not without help. Still, I didn't speak. I mean, you've always said you believed in education. I do, I said. Then why are you doing this? Because you told me to stay out of it. He stared. That's not what I meant. It doesn't matter what you meant. You said it. You made it clear. I was the outsider. Remember? His face twisted, part guilt, part confusion. Why now? He asked. Why after all these years? Because now you're old enough to understand what it means to burn bridges. Ryan entered the room then. Tossed his backpack on the counter like it was a declaration of war. You can't just cut us off, he said. I already did. It's not right. No, I said. It's honest. He folded his arms. So what, we're just on our own now? Yes. And you're okay with that? I met his stare. You weren't on your own when I was driving you to clinics, or buying your shoes, or showing up to every game your real dad didn't care enough to attend. But I was just the guy mom drags along. So now? Yeah. You're on your own. Sarah tried to speak, but Ryan cut her off. This is cruel, he said. No, I said. This is reality. That week was a study in unraveling. Alex applied for a deferment. Ryan tried to pick up more hours at his part-time warehouse job. I heard him on the phone one night, whispering to someone. Maybe a friend, maybe Brandon. Saying he didn't know what to do. Nobody asked me again. They just adjusted. Ryan sold his PS5. Alex started eating frozen burritos. The Wi-Fi bill went unpaid for a week. I let it happen. I watched them improvise, struggle, budget. And I didn't lift a finger. Not because I hated them. Because I needed them to see the weight I'd carried. The weight they'd mocked. Sarah watched too. Not with judgment. Not with sympathy. Just quiet, slow realization. One night, she poured herself a second glass of wine and sat beside me on the porch. They're struggling, she said. I know. They're still your. No, I said. They never were. She looked away. I should have stood up for you more, she said. I thought it would pass. That they'd grow out of it. They grew into it. Silence stretched between us. The kind that had texture, weight. They talk to Brandon more now, she said. Good, I said. He can't afford it. He says he'll help when he can. That's between them. Her voice got smaller. They miss you. I took a long breath. Let the cool air fill my chest. They miss the comfort I provided. That's not the same. She didn't argue. Because she knew. The next morning, Ryan knocked on my office door. For the first time in years, he knocked. He stepped in, holding a piece of mail. A health insurance cancellation notice. I don't know how this works, he said. I thought I was still covered. You were, I said. Under my plan. Until I took you off. He looked at the paper like it had betrayed him. I have a toothache, he muttered. It's killing me. I nodded. Do you want me to explain your options? I asked. He nodded. I spent the next hour at the kitchen table with him, walking him through state insurance websites, premium tiers, deductibles. He asked questions. I answered, calmly, clearly. When we finished, he didn't say thank you. But he didn't leave either. He just sat there, staring at the table, silent. That was enough. A few days later, Alex asked if I could help him draft an email to appeal his financial aid status. He didn't say please, but he listened, took notes, didn't interrupt. That was enough too. Not forgiveness, not closure, just the beginning of understanding. Sarah started cooking dinner again. Real meals. Sat beside me at the table. Asked if I wanted to watch something after. I said yes. It was quiet, simple, but something had shifted. I wasn't dead. Still not. Never would be. But I wasn't a stranger anymore either. I was the man who'd stopped giving, and made them finally see what I'd been giving all along. A year passed. Not quickly. Not quietly. It was the kind of year that peels the skin off things. That tests the weight of every name, every tie, every unspoken rule you thought held a household together. The boys didn't leave. They stayed, part-time students, part-time workers, full-time survivors of their own arrogance. They adjusted. They struggled. And slowly, they stopped pretending they didn't need help. Not mine, not at first, but help, in general. Alex got a job at a tech repair kiosk in the mall. Spent his evenings bent over cracked phone screens, learning the names of tools and adhesives. Ryan stocked inventory at a hardware store, came home with grease under his nails, blisters on his palms. They started budgeting, started saying no to things. Ryan canceled his gym membership. Alex stopped ordering DoorDash 3 times a week. Their arguments grew shorter, their silences less hostile. And me? I watched. I didn't return to old habits. I didn't open my wallet. I didn't step back into the father role they'd burned to the ground. But I didn't gloat either. When Ryan needed help filing taxes, I showed him where the forms were. When Alex's car wouldn't start in the rain, I lent him my jumper cables. No words, just a nod. The boys said less, but what they said carried weight. Thanks. Got it. Sorry. Small words, but finally spoken to me. Not through their mother. Not in passing. To me. Thanksgiving came. The table was quieter than usual. No extended family that year. Just the 4 of us. Sarah had roasted a chicken instead of a turkey. Less fuss, she said. The boys helped set the table without being asked. As we cleared dishes, Alex joined me at the sink. He dried plates while I rinsed. Then, quietly, "You were right. About all of it." I didn't turn. "I'm sorry for how we treated you." I just nodded. No lectures. No "I told you so." Just that quiet space where the truth finally found room to breathe. Ryan didn't say much that night. But when I came downstairs the next morning, the trash had been taken out. The dishes put away. A note on the counter. "Back at 2. Thanks. Thanks." It's funny how a single word can sound like a life being rebuilt. Sarah softened too. Less apologetic, more grounded. She started correcting the boys when they interrupted me. She made space for my voice. Asked what I thought before making decisions. Not performatively, sincerely. There were still cracks. Still echoes of what had been said. But the silence had changed. It wasn't avoidance anymore. It was acknowledgement. They'd been forced to live in a world where I didn't catch them. And they didn't like it. They missed the net. Missed the comfort. Missed me. Not the ATM version of me. Not the silent provider. Me. It was subtle at first. Ryan asking what I thought about a new car model he was saving for. Alex inviting me to his coding demo at the community college. Sarah holding my hand during dinner. The house felt warmer. Not fixed. Not whole. But less cold. And I was different too. I didn't give blindly anymore. When Alex asked if I could co-sign a small loan, I said no. When Ryan hinted at help with a dental bill, I pointed him toward a clinic. Not out of spite, but because I knew what my silence had taught them, that nothing is free, not love, not time, not presence, and certainly not respect. They needed to feel what it was like to lose something they thought would always be there. They needed to see what happened when the man they ignored became the man who walked away. Because I had walked away, not physically, but emotionally, financially, and that distance became the teacher they never expected. The distance taught them boundaries. It taught them that fathers don't appear on command. That support without gratitude isn't support. The servitude. They don't call me dad. They probably never will. But they look me in the eye now. They clean their own messes. They say thank you. And maybe on the best days they mean it. Sarah told me one night, half asleep, head on my chest, "I'm proud of you for not bending this time." It was the first time I felt like she saw me as something other than a human patch kit. We still argue, still disagree, but I'm no longer invisible. I'm no longer just the guy mom drags to school meetings. I'm the man who said no, who walked away from a house built on disrespect and came back only when the floorboards were reinforced with truth. And I've learned something I wish I'd known years ago. Step-parents don't get fairy tales. We don't get parades. We get tested, ignored, dismissed. We are expected to give like fathers and endure like strangers. But there is power in walking away. There is clarity in letting the consequences land. Because when they do, when the dust settles and the entitlement fades, what remains is something rare. Respect. Not given. Earned. And if it took me 9 years, thousands of dollars, and a burned bridge to find it, so be it. I am no longer their wallet. I am no longer their fallback. I am a husband again, a man again, and maybe, just maybe, someone they've finally learned to see. So tell me, was I wrong to stop giving? To let the cost of their contempt finally rise to the surface? Would you have kept paying? Would you have stayed quiet? Or would you, like me, have watched your own name fade from their lips and thought, not anymore? Because silence isn't peace. And respect, once lost, demands a reckoning. This was mine. Now it's your turn. Would you have endured it? Or would you have left the table too?